for years, some of my friends, didn't know my Amara, my second child, is my rainbow baby. And you keep hearing about things happening, but if you don't share them and then it happened to you, you could like change someone's total trajectory and just say, you know what, this sucks, but it happened to me too, and I mean it through.
Hey guys, welcome to the 6th episode of The Story Project. Each guest I've interviewed so far has blown me away with their story, vulnerability, and resilience. I am so excited to welcome my guest today, Dr. Jonelle Anamelechi. Did I say that correctly?
Oh, you are so on it. Yes.
Yes. And I actually meant to check before, and I just realized, I was like, no, I forgot on the pronunciation. So if I got that right, that's amazing. I actually think it's a super fun last name. So do people typically call you Dr. J, Dr. Jonelle, Dr. Anamelechi? What are they?
It's been interesting. So I've gone from, I was Dr. Grant, then to Anamelechi. Now most people call me Dr. A. So it's kind of in between, but I either get A or Anamelechi at this point.
Well, I usually like to begin these conversations talking about how we met, or how, I met all of my guests. And I remember specifically the last time, or actually first time I met you, but also last time we were together was at the Delivering Wow Conference 2020, before the entire world shut down for the pandemic. And that was so lovely to meet you there and just kind of get to see you in person. It's so different when you meet people in person.
Yeah, it was a really big, it was one to remember. I'll just say that. It was definitely a conference to remember. We shut down. We all shut down New Orleans. But it was also really good. And like you said, when you put a face to people that you see socially, that you track around, or that you know the husband of.
Yes, completely.
It's really nice when you love the wives of the husbands, right?
Totally. Oh yeah.
When that's the case.
Yes. I love meeting like cool individuals, but it's also fun, when their partners are cool and you're like, oh, we could double date.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when your kids are like younger, I don't know, you'll have to tell me when they're older, your time is so limited. You just have to, like, you really want to mesh, because you're like, I don't have that much time. So I can't like find 3 different people. Like, we all can just go out on a date.
Yes, completely. Before, I always like to do some light questions before we get into like your story. So just for fun, where did you grow up and where do you live now?
I grew up on a farm, believe it or not, in South Carolina. Okay. And I live in Washington, D.C. right now.
Awesome. Wow. That is like a really big change from South Carolina.
We'll talk about that more. Wow. Yes.
That is awesome. Okay. So how many kids do you have? And then what are their ages?
I have 2 little ones, 5 and 2.
Okay. Oh, they're very cute too. And then, so what's the craziest thing or funniest thing either of them have done to date or recently?
You know what? I'd have to say it was this morning. I have a boy and a girl, and my boy is the 5-year-old. And it was like literally weather advisory storm this morning. And he thought it would be hilarious while I was driving him to camp to open the sunroof. The entire sunroof. Rain is like pouring in. I'm probably on a conference call and trying to like order Uber Eats and like, everything. And I'm like, close.
Yeah.
He thought it was hilarious.
That is
hilarious. So currently at camp, probably soaking wet because I had
right. That sounds exactly like a 5-year-old boy. I mean, and one with a sense of humor,
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I should have stopped to laugh. And when I thought about it later and I was recounting it as I finally, gotten to work and unwound everything, I was like, that could have been a really funny moment. I was just in the midst of so many things. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So it was a big reality check, honestly, because I could have just walked into work soaking wet too and it'd been okay.
Right. It's just the timing sometimes,
So bad.
if we only had one thing going on as moms and working moms, to sit around and just be delighted when our kid opens the sunroof, we might crack up immediately.
Right. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'll crack up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive into this conversation and always like to hear from all of our docs how it began for them. So tell us how you got into dentistry and the story behind who inspired you.
Oh. So I'm the kid that's wanted to be a dentist since I was a little kid, like pulling teeth in the playground, charging money for it, just so I could buy probably the latest Cabbage Patch Kid for all I for all I know. And it was really because I had really great experiences as a kid going to the dentist. And so as I kind of went through my trajectory, my cousins always say, you're the one who said you're going to be a dentist, and you did it. I don't have any family members that are dentists. There's no one in my family that's in dentistry, but I'd been in love with it since a kid. And I don't regret that decision today. It's kind of odd, actually.
That is amazing. You don't hear too many people say that they were inspired as children, enough by their own local dentist to be a dentist growing up.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because when I think about, the fact that we have an internship program at our office, and that, we have 10 dentists who have gone through that program now in dental school, now out practicing, that's kind of why that was like one of my whys. Like, I was so inspired as a young kid. If I can get someone else where I was, that would be super cool. And I'd like to retire. So hopefully somebody's going to come back and be like, hey, Dr. A, I'm done with school. Are you ready to go now?
That's amazing. Oh yeah, you're kind of like, building your own tribe there.
I know.
Yeah, for like the indefinite future. That's awesome. Very smart. Well, Studio 88 started working with you. I went back to look, so correct me if I'm wrong, summer of 2018 to help you create your online presence for your startup. And since then, you've grown to establish 2 practices in the DC area. So one in New Carrollton, Maryland, and the other in DC, called Children's Choice, Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics. I just have to say congratulations, because that is a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been huge. The journey, which we'll talk about some more, has been so interesting, but also I've grown so much. And we kind of joke my husband and I joke a bit, because, it was open practice, months later, have a kid, open a second practice, actually have a kid, 3 months later, open the second practice. So he's like, how about that third? And I'm like, sweetie. We know these things seem to come in pairs, and we might slow down, maybe. We'll see.
Oh my goodness, I love that. What made you want to work with kids and be a get into pedo and be a pediatric dentist?
When I was considering career choices, it was either social work, when I was actually thinking about kind of impact wise, right? And I knew dentistry, want to go into healthcare. I do a lot of policy work too, which is kind of like my side thing. Like, I love policy, and I love oral health policy. And, my whole theory behind that is, I could see I have 7,000 patients in my base right now, and I could treat them daily. But what about the impact that I could have on thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of kids, just by changing, making a policy change, just by adding a benefit in their insurance or something like that. So that kind of was where I was like, where can I have the most impact? Oh, it's pediatric dentistry, because I feel like I'm from the start, and I can kind of influence other things that happen during that time.
That's amazing. Wow, I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as we get into this conversation, it's just going to be, we're going to have a lot of wow moments. Goosebumps. Will you ever consider running for office? Because I will vote for you.
My gosh, no.
I just threw that in there.
But my gosh, I would. I've tried to convince my husband to do it for like our local neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, sweetie. So I don't think we're going to be the politics here, but I will be the one writing the policy, likely, that the person in front will be presenting.
Yeah, it's probably even more powerful and better, honestly. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
describe your practices for us. What's the focus of your practice? Kind of, every practice really has its own flavor, theme, culture. What do your patients experience when they walk through your doors?
If I had to put it in a nutshell, are the Disney of dentistry. We truly think of it as we're in character, but I hire people that are genuine. So they really aren't in character, which is kind of interesting, right? Because some days are better than others. So clearly we, emotionally, we have to get ourselves a bit pumped up to, to really make it move. But we look at the child as the whole body, not just the mouth, not just the teeth, not just those baby teeth that are going to fall out eventually. And we really try to expand that. So when we look at how we can help the family, we'll see someone coming into town for the first time, have just moved in, and we're like, how can we get you connected? Not even like, what are your questions you have about teeth? What connections do you need? And we have a little guide, our children's choice favorites, and we, restaurants, pediatricians, everybody. I mean, we just have it. And they're like, oh my gosh, like totally unexpected, right? And that also led into our 20, gosh, we're in March of this year. We opened our Thrive Center, which is our pediatric airway focused side of our practice, sleep, feeding, speech, all those things, because we really just want to, since we're coming from the start, we want to make sure that we're including all of our areas, not just looking at the teeth.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. That really is. Airway is so important and impactful.
It is.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Story Project, episode 6 with Dr. Jonelle Anamelechi, and we're back. We had a little bit of a mishap tech fail, and her and I just thought, well, why not go do a wardrobe change, come back, and just finish the rest of the episode, right?
Indeed.
Dr. Jonelle has fantastic fashion, so if I can see as much as possible, I would call that a good day. Awesome. I'm excited to just kind of finish this conversation with you and continue that. The last thing we were talking about was, I was sharing with you one of my biggest takeaways and impressions of watching you on social media is your powerful attitude. You intentionally embody positivity, joy in a way that really stands out from the crowd. And I'm sure that your disposition is an incredible asset when working with children and families. And it also makes for a great conversation around living life with a healthy, positive mindset. So where does your positive disposition come from? Were you kind of born with a happy gene, or is this something that you work on often?
I think it's a bit of both. My family, like my immediate family, is pretty happy. They're pretty happy bunch. And my dad was always like you know what, if you don't know it, fake it till you make it. Like just put a smile on and keep on moving. And I sort of took that attitude. I've taken that attitude myself. Even when there have been challenges and a lot of things and along this way, it's kind of I don't know if you've probably ever seen my personal email script. It's like, if it's not oh gosh, I'm gonna botch it up. If it's not done, it's not the end. It's like from the Marigold Hotel. So basically, if it's not the final, it's not the end. It's not the final say. And that I kind of live by. I'm like, okay, if it didn't work out, it's not it. What's supposed to be. Like, that's not it. Let's move on. And, definitely there are times when I'm like, oh, somebody lift me up. But that's when I learned as an older age to surround myself with people that'll do that. Like, people that can catch the tone in your voice at this point and know something's not right. Like, what's going on? And now Voxer, like this just makes things so easy. Like, hey, you didn't sound right. Your response wasn't the way, I thought it should be. Everything okay? And I so appreciate that. It really helps to not have to fake it till you make it, and really just be the authentic and genuine person that you are, and smile, even though like things may be just like crumbling at times. because you know that it will be better.
Yeah, I love that. I also use Voxer with my family, my sister, and it's true. Even your audio, just verbally processing, if they know you and they're in your circle, they immediately call me out and they can tell when I'm not okay. And I think it's important for us to surround ourselves with people that can help lift us up, but also check in, on us and help us through something we're going through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely huge. And, you have those friends that, can immediately do that for you. You have people that some people that I wouldn't say are in my close circle, but can, like my back pocket, as Anissa would say, that can also bring that out like, that just, something's not right. What's up? Yeah. And I love it. I love it. I love it.
That's awesome. So how does your energetic, intentional mindset of just influence the culture in your practices? And then also it's kind of same question, but then how does that influence and help you lead your family at home?
Oh, two really good questions in terms of, so it's become a running joke now, but there was an interviewee in our practice and it happened to be like Crazy Hat Day. And we have, so every year after Halloween, generally, we'll buy all the discount costumes. That was pre-COVID, and we will wear the costumes all year long. Like we have literally a storage house of costumes for our team. And awesome. An interviewee was like, do I have to wear the hat? And my team still picks on me. They're like, I said, you must wear the hat. Like I was so serious about it. And she didn't get hired. Like, if you can wear the hat, come on, like what's the point? And so, being in that nature, and now I'm learning myself to be more of a introverted extrovert. So like I get in earlier than my team to kind of just have a woosah moment. Like I can't walk in with my team. Like I have to get there a little bit earlier, meditate for a moment, get my mindset right, get my flow going, and then, off and on to be able to push that energy into other people. And so, find the same at home. When I told him like, it was a 5 a.m. move this morning, that's just so I can get myself right before the kids get up and everybody's like, you can't do this, I can't. Like I just need a little peace and then I can start my day. Because at that point I've set my intention and I know what my purpose is for that day.
That is awesome. Wow. So 5 a.m. is definitely early. I think you had messaged me earlier and I was like, oh my God.
I'm an early bird. You catch me at 10 p.m., you'd be like, what is wrong? It's just, no. I'm up, but it's not good up. It's just doing like mindless tasks.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. So to live as an empowered woman, mindset is critical. You and I both know this. How do you nurture and care for your mindset in addition to anything you've already mentioned, but like on a daily basis, how do you care and nurture your mental health?
It's exercise. It's lots of podcasts. I wish I knew more. I wish there were more as a teen. I think I may have had a different mindset. I had quite an attitude as a teenager, but maybe that's just, I don't know. You have to tell me if that's all teenagers. I hope my daughter doesn't pick up the attitude I had as a teenager. Lots of reading. Constantly kind of looking for things that speak to me, even when you're scrolling through feed, like, oh man, that really touched me. I'm reading the book of, from the founder of It Cosmetics. I think it's, I'm forgetting her name right now, but I was on the plane the other day just bawling because her story was just so inspirational. And I'm like, come on, there are people that are doing so, have gone through so much more than I have and like are really pulling out and being able to motivate. I can definitely continue to motivate myself and make sure, and especially my team members and my family members, make sure they feel some sort of positivity when they, when they come across me. Because that may be what they needed for that day. There was a quote that I have on our kitchen wall for this week that says, sometimes you pray and sometimes you're the answer to a prayer. And so I keep that in the back of my mind, in my interactions, in my daily interactions.
Oh man, I love that so much. You're speaking my language. That is the perfect segue to just mention. So Marie Forleo, she's the author of Everything is Figure Outable. And that girl is so like loud and in charge. And I mean, just kind of doing a lot of really great stuff. But she talks often about the power behind a positive attitude. And a few years ago, did a really cool episode, podcast episode, and 3 reasons why a positive attitude matters more than you think. So she goes through the 3, top 3 things from her opinion, but she sums it up in a quote. And I want to cover this, just one of the 3. Your energy is contagious. So think about what you want people to catch from you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that kind of goes along with the quote that you mentioned. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I walk into a room, you can feel other people's energy.
Yes. Yes.
Our attitudes are so powerful. I think sometimes we take that for granted or even minimize that, but our dispositions affect our partners, our friends, our children, our team, everyone around us. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to, take responsibility for our attitudes, our mindset, and for what we're putting out there. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, what can we as women, mothers, business owners, do to increase, a positive, attitude and not allow like the circumstances around us to completely drive our joy each day?
I think it is taking that moment, like you say, to notice, not everyone, when we talk about love languages, right? Not everyone has the same language, right? But maybe trying to recognize what those are, especially if they're people that you encounter on a daily basis. How can I walk into and make this person feel special, right? It works well in pediatric dentistry because I'm constantly trying to, draw out from a child, what's going to make them feel special today? What's going to make this parent feel like they're doing something right? Even if the kid has 19 out of 20 cavities. All right, that 20th tooth doesn't have a cavity. And the team laughs at me, but I'm like, you can't, I know how much guilt there is as a parent. I know I would feel really badly, right? If my kid has cavities. So what can I draw out from this? What can I learn and help them, feel like, they're just not a total failure. Times are hard. And so I would say, tapping into that, tapping into what you think, what you feel people are giving back to you, right? You learn in interview styles, kind of meeting people's demeanor and just, disposition, and really working on that. Just taking notice, being present. I think to sum it up, presence. My husband tells me that all the time because I come home and there are like a million things, and as I'm trying to unwind the day and wind back into family life, he's just like, be present, recognize what's happening around you, and you'll never really miss the cues of what's happening.
I love that. And I think that honestly, all of the women, most dentists that I meet are very, and I've had all women on the Story Project podcast, and all of them have been, they're drivers, they're type A, they get it done, they're entrepreneurs, they're probably overachievers, but they're changing the world, right? Including you. And so your mind is just constantly going. You're thinking strategy, future, it's always what's next. Yeah. Mine does in my own way. And so that whole concept of being present is so important. Yeah. And a trick, honestly, I don't know if you follow Jay Shetty.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I started his podcast, and he is so many, I get so inspired by everything just practically that he shares. And I've been really working on, specific things that I can do, small habits every morning that really shape my mindset through the day, help me manage any chaos or whatever comes. And one of them being just the practice of meditation and, gratitude journaling. And for me, reading scripture, those are life-giving words for me. And also he mentioned he does a cup of tea, but he really savors it before he drinks it. And it's kind of a process of him being present. So he embraces the warmth of it, he smells it, and it's like a part of his meditation practice. And that simple things like that help ground me, into the here and now, where I am this morning and today. And instead of always jumping to, what I have to get done, within that 24 hours or what's coming up next week. So those small things I think are so important to help us recognize the cues of the people around us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And making it consistent, right? Not it just being, oh, I did it once this week or two, like making it a part of the routine. And one of the things, I was in Fern White's program, Practice Your Passion program, and she encouraged you to like rock it out every morning, like pick your song and literally dance like nobody's business to it. And that's a part of my daily routine. Like, I like to dance. I'm not a good dancer, so, behind the shower, behind closed doors is where I'm really Beyonceing it up,
I love that. Oh.
It is it's freeing in terms of just allowing you to be exactly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And just enjoy that moment. And so, though you're right, it's so perfect in whatever meditation form you take, to at least just take those minutes. And I used to think it had to be a lot of time, right? I used to think, and I need an hour, I need, an hour and a half. Like, no, you don't have that all the time. It could be 5 to 10 minutes, but you've done it. And that's your thing, right? That's your jam right now.
I love that. And I agree. One last thing to mention that I thought of on this subject, though, is it's no secret that, there's a very large amount of people in our society and world, moms, women, that deal with depression and anxiety. It's been on the rise, I think, especially since 2020. And you can't just, I'm very sensitive to, you can't flip a switch and just tell someone, be happy, right?
No,
there are genetics, trauma, mental health issues, just among, those are just a few of the many factors that shape our disposition and how we handle, our day-to-day life. I do believe that, while you can't flip a switch, each of us can take small steps towards working through whatever we've been through, or even our genetic dispositions, to move towards a healthier mindset. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. And I think one of the things that also steps into that is that authenticity, right? So if I come to you and, for years, some of my friends, didn't know my Amara, my second child, is my rainbow baby. And you keep hearing about things happening, but if you don't share them and then they've happened to you, you could like change someone's total trajectory and just saying, you know what, this sucks, but it happened to me too, and I made it through. Mm-hmm. And that, or it sucks and I got help, and here's some options for help. Or marriage is hard. You won't always find the answer. There are people that can help if you want to help, if you want to help it. And so I think that being open, being honest about what you've been through, and then the resources that you've used, because I'm constantly trying to figure. I'm like, well, how do they do this? And like, someone's like, girl, you need help. You need like a mother's helper, or a side, another wife or something. Yeah. Help. And I'm like, thank you for being so honest with me, because I don't know. I was thinking that it's just supposed to, happen, or it's supposed to just magically appear. Dinner is supposed to magically appear on the table when you've been out of the house for 12 hours. So, people who come up to you and say, I may make this look easy right now, but this is what I had to go through to get it there.
Yes. I am such a huge believer in vulnerability connecting all of us, and vulnerability and obviously it's a personal choice, and we have to each decide what we share, whether that's on social or with friends or whoever it is, but it's a powerful tool to nurture connection, and also to show people, like you said, hey, I went through this struggle, yes, I've reached kind of I've worked through this hard thing, but here was my journey on the way. And here were the things that I did, and here's who I leaned on and the resources I had to find. I think that it just makes other people feel human.
Yes, yes, it's so true. It's very true. And, I think you may have seen a post of mine the other day. It was like, when their lemons turn into orange juice and let the world, wonder how you did it. And I was like, or you could share it. You could share the secret to that orange juice because someone else likely needs it, right? And so that spoke to me a lot in that we shouldn't hide. That vulnerability is huge, and it is definitely in my life not something that I was born with. I had to learn, how to do that. You know, through trial and error, right? Because some people you can and some people you can't.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's something that benefits me.
That's awesome. You mentioned recently you're writing a chapter in a book on resilience and leadership with Emily Tran. Congratulations. Yes. So tell us a little bit about your book and or the book and your contribution to it.
So I'm so excited to be a part of this women's group. We are basically that vulnerability again. We are telling a mini piece of our story and hoping that it inspires others to either tell a piece of their story and or take something from ours and learn and grow from it. And so it releases the weekend before the ADA conference starts in October. We will have a small signature party, and we will also do a short talk. We'll have a mini conference with Emily as our lead that one day before the ADA conference really kicks off. And so all women are invited in healthcare. It'll be an amazing time to kind of share and show, but I was really excited. This is the first, I would say, in 2,000 words that I've kind of put, a few stories of resilience in my life together. And in writing it, I was like, these are things like maybe some people don't know, like now they know. And, it's always that feeling like, okay, well, what's the acceptance? Is still gonna, am I still gonna be accepted? Oh, I hope so. But thankfully at this point, I have enough confidence. I'm like, well, if I am, I am. And if I'm not, whatever, or make some new friends, right? Who have also had, similar journeys. So I'm excited about it. It really comes at a high point in my life in post-pandemic, not even post-pandemic. We're kind of just, I would say, I don't even know what to say at this point, during pandemic life, where you really have had a time to reflect on the gifts that you've been given and how you're going to use those to continue to impact the world.
That's awesome. So what is the name of the book? And then is there any type of Facebook group or anything that women in healthcare can look for to join?
It will be releasing soon, and I will definitely let you know. Okay. Emily has a website up now that talks about the little mini conference before the ADA, and I'll definitely send you those details. It's called Women in Healthcare, Stories of Resilience and Stories Across the World. And there are 11 of us that have contributed to this, including a couple of good friends of mine. And so we're really excited because then, of course, ADA is in Vegas. And somehow we have convinced ourselves to leave our kids and husbands behind and turn this into a mini girls weekend.
Awesome.
Woo, this is going to be good.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Good. Well, I will add in any details you send me to in the show notes so that people can find that, because that's just sounds incredibly impactful. In what ways, speaking of, I think we keep saying post-pandemic, and I'm like, really, we're in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Still in this. However, in what ways do you feel you are stronger, wiser, more resilient this year than, going through shutdown and last year? Like, what lessons did last year teach you?
To be creative. I think I'm a pretty creative person, But these past, I would say 18 months or so has really tested that. And, you know, from figuring out home life, where my son spent literally 18 months in the basement of my office, and figuring out, you know, I was very adamant about him continuing to learn virtually, whatever way, like continuing to learn, because, you know, as a family, we're like, that's the pathway. Like, he's so young and malleable at this time. Like, how can we continue to make this fun for him? And so really just on a daily basis, remixing it a little bit and popping up to see a patient, popping back down to check in on him, like going around. He'd come to work with me, and he would clean the floors at the end of the day. That was his duty. Like when the last patient was out, he had to come out with the Swiffer, and, you know, it's Swiffer time. And he thought it was hilarious because he'd run down the hall with the Swiffer and he'd run back into the room, and not like one pad, like one surface was touched, like the rest of the room's still there.
Yeah.
So that was his thing. And, you know, I started trying to find joy amidst like all the chaos that was happening. Like, what is the one piece? You know, like I just said, the kid with the 20 cavities or 19 cavities out of 20. And I'm trying to tell the mom, like, what's the one thing that like I can celebrate? And so that's kind of how we were making our way through. I mean, you saw where many shut down, and we had to, you know, we kept a team virtually for 11 weeks, kept and paid a team for 11 weeks. And we did all kinds of virtual happy hours and family Jeopardy and, you know, anything we could think of. I sent out 142 care packages to my team. Like, the people at the post, I was like, what is this girl? Like, what's wrong with her? And then I finally got down to science that I could mail, you know, I could just buy a whole bunch of posts, like buy the stamps and then mail them in my local mailbox. Like, I didn't have to go to the postal office, and everything would be like £1 or less. So I had to make sure it was £1 or less.
Yeah.
Put it in there.
That's
So
awesome.
it was freeing for me to allow me to do that creativity, to meet. I met some crazy great people just socially, that now that things open up a little bit, I'm able to like actually see, or, you know, or maybe seeing in the future, you know? So it's really, it's been a testimony to me to think about it, but not think about it too long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I continue to kind of move along with, you know, with what was going on during that time, and still going on.
Yeah.
So now it's a reminder, because you think you saw a piece of freedom, like I've seen a little bit of light, and I'm like, ooh, no, step back a bit. Like, let's put that mindset back where you're still going to be, you know, as cautious as possible, but still push yourself to find creative ways of connecting with people.
Yeah. You participated in a little video project. I don't know if you remember this. We called it A Year in Review, Dentistry's Perspective on 2020. It was really so fun because it just ended up being basically a survey from all of the dentists, and you guys sent in all of these just iPhone video clips. You know, your year in review thoughts on 2020, and we kind of put it together like a montage. You shared a little bit about how one of your highlights was that 2020 helped you embrace authenticity in your life in a new way. And that has definitely been a common thread through our conversation today. It made you really, you said it made you really stop and evaluate the impact you wanted to have in your life and in the profession. And not just because I think we all aspire to have impact, but it sounds like it made you really stop and go, wait, what does that really look like?
It did. It made me want to give more. Like, I was like, I have been so blessed. There's no reason why on any given day I shouldn't be finding a way to give back and do more. And not to the point of exhaustion, but just, you know, creative ways to do so. If, you know, if someone says I need something and I have it, there should not be a stutter step to get it to them. You know, if there's a way that I can help someone that I see needs help, do it. You know, we set up a scholarship fund for for the kids of our practice when they go off to college, because now we're having more of and now our kids are growing up in the practice. And so just things like anything that I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I wanted to go on a mission again. Oh, I hadn't done that since I was like, in 10 years, I haven't done that. Like just kind of bringing up those things and putting them back on the list of things that we want to do. Because in the 7 years of starting the business and starting a family, it's been like, it's just such a, like, it feels like a hamster wheel. It's just been that you kind of forget, oh my gosh, come on, get back. You've been given all these things. You cannot squander them on trying to figure out, when this next patient is going to walk through your door.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and again, I think it speaks to just us being so busy. So last year was there was so much survival, all of our survival kind of adrenaline just kicked in, I know mine did, as well as my husband's, owners and running Studio 80.
We were on together. I was following you all.
Yeah, it was just like, wow, how are we going to do this? I mean, the hustle, that, the creativity, like you mentioned, all of that just went through the roof for our team. And because you care so much about the people you serve and your team members, and, depending on the type of business, I mean, we all, I don't know, family maybe, but, we're all, it's a tight knit group, it's a lot of really great people. So I love that. And I think that, also being able to be just authentic as leaders and even share with the team at times, hey, this is challenging for us too. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have our high and our lows through this as well. Those days where you wake up and you're like, I can't go anywhere. Everything's shut down,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, one last thing I wanted to touch on with you, and this is a very, I think, huge highlight in dentistry, but the profession has been changing more and more when it comes to women, and how, I mean, women are stepping up to take lead ownership and find their voice and calling, and they're leading more than ever before. What do you attribute to this growing shift of women in dentistry?
I think it's seeing other badass women.
Say it. I love that.
I think it is really the groups that are formed. I mean, I'm in some of these all women dentist groups, and you talk about, we'll lift you and push you and say, heck no, like, you're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And I think it's that. I think we're finding our voice. We're finding our courage. We're finding that if we step out on that platform, someone will clap for me. Even if it's my front row friends who are like, woo-hoo!
Yes.
Someone will do it. Yeah. And I think we're realizing that we can create the life that we really want. And we can have our family and our business and still, I used to say, I don't want the title superhero. I don't want that title, because that means that it's something extraordinary where it should just be common, that we're able to have our connection with our families and have a thriving business and have a beautiful marriage if we want that for ourselves. Yeah. And so, I think, whereas we weren't sure, or maybe we weren't talking about it, or we weren't seeing it as much, now we're seeing more and more of it, and we're like, I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so much of it is women emboldening other women, because they're stepping up and they're actually doing it and saying and finding their voice and being vocal. Yes. Also leading by example and showing others the way, especially if you're figuring out how to have a thriving business and a thriving family, and then you're sharing those tools, like a Dr. Anissa Holmes and so many other, people. But I mean, she's having such a huge impact among women in the profession. And, so much of that is just leading by example. And then other women are like, wait, I can do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's wholeheartedly.
What last words can you share? Speaking of women, so what can you share with all the other women in dentistry listening to this podcast today regarding the impact they're meant to leave in the world, especially if they feel that they haven't discovered it yet?
So loaded. But it's something that you preach and practice also, which is finding your why. Really honing, you can't take someone else's why. It's not authentic. It's not going to work. So finding your why, just like we encourage others to find their vision for their practice, right? Find your vision. What's this year we did our family vision and family mission statement. I was like, wait a minute, we're taking like business stuff into the house this year? Like, this is crazy, but it needs to be, right? I mean, our family has a mission. We have a vision for what we want for ourselves and for our kids and for our family. And so you should also have that personal vision and mission. And it wasn't until I was going through, now I'm learning the power of coaches, right? For different parts in your life and different things that you want to do. And so learning that and having to go through that exercise of figuring out what my why was, and what ultimately, when I look down the line, what I'd like to be known for. And so I encourage anyone, who wants more or to make more impact, you have to define that, because then everything that comes off of it is just based on that. You're just living it out at that point, instead of feeling like you're just pulling from one part of another, just doing things just to do them.
Yeah. Okay, ladies. So did you hear Dr. Jonelle? Find your why. I could not champion what she just shared more than anything else you could have picked. I mean, that is it, because that's when we truly feel that sense of joy and purpose and fulfillment just come alive. That's when that spark just kind of takes off.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I had goosebumps multiple times while you were sharing through this podcast. Dr. Jonelle, I cannot thank you enough for just taking the time, being a mama, a business owner, dentist, a wife, all the things, to just take the time to come share your story and your heart with us, and for being our 6th guest on the Story Project podcast. If people want to follow you and stay in touch, what's the best place to do that?
They can find me online at Children's Choice Dental through IG. They can DM me. I'm the one who responds. That's still small business, small business. Really good. So if you need it directly there, it's me responding, probably at 3:00 in the morning. You can find me there. And definitely, if you want to connect, I'd love to meet some new friends.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Jonelle. And a huge thank you to our audience for hanging out with us. It would mean the world to me if you subscribe to this podcast and left a review. I love this amazing tribe of people in dentistry willing to share their stories, and it's been growing. So that's a wrap. We'll see you next time.